time talking about the ground. The ground is coming in like this. This is going to the back, so that's where the vanishing point will be, somewhere back in there. Then I have the pathway coming forward like this. And what I really want to pay attention to is that the ground is not flat. The ground is coming in like this. The pathway is curling under like this. And when I do this pathway, I want to draw these lines all the way across. And again, when you're looking at landscapes, one of the things they're doing is suggesting where the lines would be. You have to have the knowledge in your head that you want to find those checkpoints to stick in here. So you know you need to get these things in your drawing to have this create the feeling of depth, but it's your job to figure out how to get it in while looking at the landscape. Okay? So the landscape doesn't necessarily provide it, but since overlapping planes create depth, see, kind of like this, all we're doing is seeing the overlapping planes and then connecting the dots from the back to the front. That's what's happening in there. You see? So when we come in here, this might be at a greater angle. So I'll go like this. Here's a hill in the back coming in like that. You see? And then there's my general vanishing point. If I come in here nice and light like this, see? I'm using arcs. What I'm doing is I'm coming in and I'm basically creating the environment that our picture is going to take place in. See? All right? And, you know, it can be loose. This is not the same as architecture. This is, you know, actually when I was at Disney, these things would be so loose it would almost made no sense. Right? However, when you're doing these things, you're actually saying where the surface is. So when I start looking especially up on these hills here, I'm going to start noticing that these little bushy shapes actually do line up in a row. It's not always a perfect row, and that row is going to follow this hill down like this. You're going to start noticing that these little bushy shapes do this. And when you get up here on the edge, especially on my little silhouette drawing, I really want to break that down. You see what I'm talking about? When I'm lighting it, these little bushy shapes will be lit on one side, and they will be darker on the other, usually. See? So we go like this. Okay? And I'm starting to populate my landscape, which is really the next thing, is how do I populate my landscape? So you start by getting the ground plane in, then you come in and you start populating it. Okay? When you do these things, remember the rock going over the hill. So here, I bring this in. Here, I'm just reinforcing my hill. And by the way, I can change it. I can go like this if I want to. I can go. See what I mean? Now the difference between a diagram, the point of which is to be incredibly obvious, and the drawing you're doing, is you'll take some more time and really work it out, right, a little bit more. I wouldn't take a lot more time. If I were you, I might time myself today. This is hard to do, by the way. But time myself and say, all morning long, I don't want to spend more than a half an hour on a sketch, right? So that for the beginning of the day, what you do is you just come in and you start doing a bunch of things like this. Understand how this works. That's the idea. Understand how this works. Don't spend too much time massaging, because that's when you're starting to copy, right? When you take your time and do this, that's when it's going to really work. When you come in here, you're going to have ground planes that go like this. They can be irregular. In fact, half the fun is making them irregular. And then here I have a little cliff, see? then I come in here and I can put in my plants, which I'll put in as dome-like shapes. And remember, if the plants are relating to this ground plane, like over here, or if I come in and put this in over here, if my plants, each one is inside one of these squares, or I'm using the squares as a guide, they don't have to be perfectly inside. One thing that will happen is my plants won't be inside of each other, which is one of the problems that happens when people start doing this, is they draw one object sort of halfway inside. It's usually the object in the back. So here you'll start getting it, okay? When you're drawing these plants, remember last week we were talking about the individual leaf isn't important. It's actually a group of leaves that's important. And that was when you could really tell the individual leaves. Here you really can't. There are literally 2,000 leaves on the tip of each branch, right? So what you want to do here, even more than last week, is you want to look at this plant over here and say, here is the dome-like shape of the plant. And by the way, these domes may go like this. The plant next to it may go like this. The plant in front of it may be a little squatter. The domes don't all have to be the same. What I could do is look at my dome here. When I'm going to draw the plant, I'll go like this, and I draw a circular shape like that. And so now I've modified my dome so that I have basically the stems and the bottom of the plant coming out like this. Does everybody see what I'm talking about? Then, if I want, I could break it down into a very simple grid. And remember, these grids are intended to help you, so don't use them when they're not going to help you, is what I'm saying. Come in here and start from the front and start drawing the bigger groupings of the leaves. So in other words, you're working from big to small. Everybody see? When I get to the outside, I want to make sure that I have leaves that are sticking out. I want a nice irregular outside shape on my silhouettes. And if I can, I want to get little negative shapes and holes in there to make it work, because that'll be more interesting than, say, an outside shape that looks like that.